We test all of our concentrates at least 3 times before we even go into the formulation process, into the production. And then we're testing the final products, and then we're setting some aside out of each batch, and then we're doing shelf stability tests on them down the road as well to just determine, is everything staying stable in the product, 18 months, 24 months down the line.
I 100% would agree with that. I would also say with the lab testing, like she said, to make sure that you test it and really pay attention to the milligrams per gram and the percentage and what ingredients you're infusing it into, because that's also going to change it. What if you are infusing it with something that is making it less stable? So make sure that you don't just test the concentrate or the extract, but actually after you formulate it, test it then to make sure that it didn't change. Because let's say you put 10 milligrams or 25 milligrams of your oil or whatever, but then whatever you mixed it with, it actually changes it or destabilizes it. Another thing is heat, time, and light and pressure will change cannabinoids. So your packaging needs to not allow any heat, like the position wherever you're putting it. Don't leave it in your trunk in the car. The shelf stable lab test, getting it tested at 3 months, 6 months, 18 months, however long you think your shelf stability is. Pressure, making sure that it's not getting crushed in some particular way that's destabilizing the molecules.
Very good. Next question. Any question? Yes, right here. And then we'll get to you, sir.
I just had a question about something that wasn't discussed concerning regulation and testing for pesticides and stuff. Have you ever experienced a problem with failing for pesticides after adding a whole food ingredient? And how have you guys... No?
I've never had that experience because all of the Ayurvedic and Chinese herbs that we get are third-party lab tested before we receive them, and we receive those COAs, the certificate of analysis, as well. So I have not had that experience. That's really focusing on where you're sourcing all of your ingredients. You really need to vet them.
Yeah, I would just add on to that. Once you finish with your product formulation, whatever it is you're doing, CBD is an expensive ingredient. So you really don't want to make the mistake of mixing up something and now you can't get it back out. And now you've wasted all that raw material. So it really is about finding manufacturers and suppliers that you trust for those raw materials or those whole foods. And I would make sure you're just testing all of that prior. And so you wouldn't have to worry about that.
Great, thank you so much. And sir, I know you had a question right here, correct?
Thank you. Hi, Paul. The good news for CBD is mounting scientific and medical evidence about its efficacy. What I'm wondering is that bad news for the nutraceutical industry? Because are we going to become now in competition with the pharmaceutical industry as government regulations come in and CBD becomes government-controlled medication?
I don't necessarily think so. I think that there will eventually be a side-by-side, but we spend a lot of time thinking about that with our nutraceutical partner, and also what we already heard about the isolates, right, is that might be regulated in a different way. But when you look at different formulations of CBG and CBC, I know those for sure are not going to be regulated at all for the time being. And so there's some really interesting workarounds with different cannabinoids where the government just hasn't caught up. And so I just think that there's a lot of runway in the nutraceutical space. And even today, nutraceutical lives alongside pharmaceutical, and they're just different markets. And no matter how this evolves, I think that there's still a lot of room for both.
I had a question for Nicole and I think Christina in regard to the FDA last week came out with some fairly bad news in regard to some of the food products. Do you guys have any thoughts on where we're going and what the FDA might be doing here in the future?
They are specifically talking about CBD isolate as the single molecule, which Christina and I both mentioned earlier. Our business model is to be sustainable always, so our organic USDA hemp flowers are an industrial hemp product. The U.S. Department of Agriculture sees it the same as hemp seeds. So if you do use our flower powder in any of your products, it can be sold in grocery stores because it's not a drug, it's a whole plant. When you keep something whole plant, the pharmaceutical company doesn't want anything to do with it. Christina?
Yeah, the FDA's position hasn't really changed. It's kind of been this way from get-go. It has put a damper on our ability to grow and expand, though, I'll be honest about that. We've been in conversation with several larger multi-state retailers that are really ready to bring the products into their shelves, but their legal teams are not allowing them to move forward until the FDA brings regulations to the industry. I've heard from different people that have insight that the FDA will be bringing regulations to the industry by Q1 of next year. So for now, we're patiently waiting, or maybe impatiently is more accurate. But I really do believe that this plant has been used for thousands of years. It's been used in traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic practices, and this industry is being driven by the consumer, not the FDA. And the FDA will bring sensible regulations to this industry. It's only a matter of time. And I think we've talked about, isolate is probably going to be used in the pharmaceutical channel, and the full spectrum plant is going to be used in the more of the open retail channel.
And are there any, did you want to ask?
I wanted to go back to Paul's question, not to get on any form of political activism or anything like that, but when you're talking about the pharmaceutical industry or the government coming in and stepping in, we have to look at the pharmaceutical industry in itself. People see the pharmaceutical industry and they make it synonymous with, this is regulated, this is better, or it's cleaner, it's medicine. But that's not always true. There's a lot of dirty practice in the pharmaceutical industry, and us now in this industry and us as a people, as a country, have to realize that, like what Christina said, this is a plant. You would balk and think it was crazy if the FDA came out and said, celery is now a pharmaceutical, or a carrot or something like that, where I know there's it's much different because there's a lot of medicinal properties to cannabis and to hemp that those agricultural products don't have. But it's kind of on us, where if we allow CBD to become another cog in the pharmaceutical machine, and we as people don't speak up about it to our government, to our legislators, or even just out in the open forum, that's kind of on us. This is something that has always been, going back to the hippie age, something for the people, and that was what it was supposed to be and designed to be. So if we allow it to become something like that, it's kind of our mistake and folly for not fighting a little bit harder on that. But that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be and needs to be better regulation on the industry, but allowing it to go pharmaceutical would be, I think, a loss on us as a people.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much once again to our panelists, Paul, Kyle, Nicole, and Christina. But most of all, I know you are all here because you care. You want to be part of this industry, or you are part of this industry, and being able to be educated and learn how this natural plant could help you and your industry, but also, number one, for better patient care, for a healthier life. So thank you so much for coming today to the CBD Expo West. Please have a great rest of the day and a wonderful, healthy future. And I do have to say thank you so much to the staff of the CBD Expo West for all your hard work this weekend. And I know the panelists will be able to talk to you. So thank you. And Eliza right over here, we have to give her a big hand. She's the Director of Programming. And again, all of you here, I want to see you back here next year with your amazing companies, with responsible formulas, and leading a happy life. Thank you so much.